I brought treats. As long as people like vegetables, they're treats. If you
What
don't
are
like
they
vegetables,
exactly?
they're radish seed pods.
Really?
They're called dragon tail radishes.
So how do I prepare this?
You eat it. You eat it raw, like a
Straight
radish.
up?
Right now?
Watch,
Okay.
I will demonstrate.
Is it hot, spicy?
It's milder,
So
kind of
we'll-
bulb radish.
So
my
in the,
goodness.
in the
we'll
back,
start with
yeah, how about
Way
that?
more volume.
I think I'll wait. So
Like
It's
one
had enough of the
plant
paper things,
gives
because we
maybe
couldn't get
100
Curtis's
times
to
the
stand
volume
up and Phil's.
No,
as a bulb.
I just want to
It is a
know
radish.
where what the heat is like.
No, very, very,
I think we ordered them off Amazon.
they're my favorite.
What?
So,
What are these?
George and Geraldine, we're moving up.
Holy moly.
What's that?
Where are these coming
We ordered them.
You know, I saw in the orders there was a sign thing. I was like, wow.
We, Curtis's wouldn't stand up anymore, and Phil's was printed on like 4 different sides, so we just said enough.
Plus
We
it
got
was
the real,
upside
we got the
down.
real thing.
Wow.
In the back to the right. And
So we saved money on one thing.
Some things you gotta say.
I believe it's Kim Gibbs. Paul,
Marriott's for Jay.
Jeffrey, Jeff.
Great.
What is?
Kim?
Yes,
And is it Jeff?
Jeff, yeah.
Jeff, and is Gibbs singular or Gibbs plural?
yes.
Gibbs with an S?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the
I know that because of your
Password
very
can't be
talented daughter.
Sure.
Oh,
password?
And I just asked you your name and
Julia Milo?
Julia?
Yeah.
That's my niece's name, so what's the last name?
Milo, M-I-E, like in April,
Oh, I
I-L-L.
feel like I'm sitting on the floor.
Got it.
You got all that? And we have more people coming, so I'll have to have them maybe write it down.
Julia.
What's wrong with those chairs? What's wrong with that one?
Would you like this one? Does someone want this? chair?
No, I want, like, how about that?
She wants a higher. Tried using it last week.
Oh, she wants a higher one.
That would
Well,
be
I
it.
feel like I'm sitting on the floor.
Must be elevated.
Yes. Wait, you tried sitting on this thing.
Who's talking about this?
Curtis, you know, as you get older, you need accommodations, okay? So, just think of me in 40 years, I'll be laughing in heaven. I kind of feel kind of a little bit. Yeah. Okay, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. You want this back?
I'm gonna take mine back.
Okay, all right. Yep.
Way to cause a ruckus.
I know.
It's missing like a wheel though. No? You okay?
I don't like feeling like, you know, I have to look up like that.
That one got food last meeting.
I know. That's what you
I-
said. That's what you said, but.
I guess this is a drill we didn't have to do when we're just using Zoom or Microsoft Teams.
Could sit in any.
You know, a
venue
good
or-
game of duck, duck, goose just is as good as it gets.
I agree.
Phil, did you bring that in?
Yes.
That was great, thank you.
I am,
You're welcome.
Nice to meet you.
What is that for Jay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wondered what.
So, do you not feel comfortable with you, for yourself or for others?
I think, you know, I got got 18 months under my belt. I'm totally fine. My favorite thing was this winter. I didn't have a single like sniffle
Back
or
to the
cough or anything.
I know. None
And the
of us
idea
did.
of being able to live like, who even knew you could go winter feeling healthy,
That's
right?
exactly true, yeah. But did you get vaccinated?
Oh yeah. Oh,
I guess I have everything I need.
I did get a
oh,
cold.
you got a cold.
Well, associated a little bit with my grandchildren.
Mhm.
When they went back to school,
No,
it
I
was
mean,
about
you said
two
according to
weeks
nothing.
later, I got a really bad cold.
Let me s-
It's normally how it goes. Comes from the kids.
This is on your thing. It came in today.
Whose signatures?
Oh, Curtis.
That's me.
Oh, that's you?
Yes.
Okay. I see you over here, so I just. Okay. I'll give this back to Phil. I don't know if it's not, somebody's gonna follow through.
I love our online tax map.
That's interesting. Okay. Did you sign this? No.
Mary, those are the June 7th minutes that were approved at the last meeting, can be signed.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have you need to approve the June 21st minutes tonight, and then we'll put those in the book once you approve them.
Okay.
Okay.
So the June 21st ones are tonight.
Yep.
That's in our packet.
Everybody ready?
Just have to sign things, that's all.
Do you wanna wait till you sign?
Like, we can,
Did you sign this? No, but I figured.
I'll take a couple of those home with me. 'Cause
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I like, I eat quite a lot of radishes.
I love radish.
And if that's the problem is this time of year, they don't do well in the heat.
So these ones are really different.
No.
They really are. You'll see.
Yeah, thank you, Curtis.
This is the first of many.
Really?
The garden goes all year. All summer. What? What? Did you not sign it, Phil?
no, I don't think I have, plus it belongs in here. So,
Oh, it's just one.
Just wanted to write Zach's name, so when I met Zach this morning in the driveway.
Was he mowing?
Yeah. Yeah. It's good.
Like Zach.
Huh?
Zach's a good man.
Five-minute conversation, I guess. I say we had a 5-minute conversation.
That's good for him. You didn't talk much. So 5 minutes is good.
Well, I came by to show structure off, and I thought, well, I guess I'll say hello, so that was good.
Cheyenne, his wife, works in the Lister's office.
Yeah.
So let's call meeting to order at 5:37 or 5:36.
This is 5:34.
Okay. Let's go with what you have.
Let's go with the
Okay. And first thing up is the minutes from the June 21st meeting. Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of June 21st as presented.
I only signed one.
I will second.
Any changes, any discussion?
Good, good.
Yeah. Because there were two. So I guess everybody's in agreement?
For what it's worth, I was in attendance. I just wasn't here.
Oh, I didn't know you wanted,
I attended the entire thing, but
you
it's
just
totally
couldn't
fine.
speak.
Yeah, it's totally fine.
Well, it should be duly noted. right?
Do you want to? So as amended?
Do
Okay.
you accept?
Oh, yes,
Okay.
sorry.
So you were just, you were able to listen in?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize
I actually was texting Mary throughout as well.
I wasn't reading the text. Sorry. Okay, adjustments to the agenda? None?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, there are none.
Okay.
Correct.
And so that's fine. Okay, public comments? Anybody?
Are we doing the warrants?
Yes, which I always like to skip right over. So can I have a, sorry, just a minute. Can I have a motion for the warrants?
I move that we approve the invoices up to 7/6/21.
I'll second the motion.
Any questions?
Yes. Gotta find them first. I just had a couple things I was. It's not something that I'm concerned, it's just wondered what it is. Elevator repair, Dave? That was here?
Yep. I can't remember exactly what it was to the elevator, but it was for here and for the library,
Yeah.
to coincide with the inspection.
And the new tent, that's for the tent, right? $3,900.
That was for the rec center tent that the one maybe a year ago blew away, and
Yeah.
Got it.
that's the
That was a
tent we were-
purchase?
that was the one that was out there. Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
But that is a purchase as
Not a
opposed to a
rental.
rental.
Correct, that was a
Okay.
purchase. Yeah, we use that right through the summer for the summer camp kids, and, you know, in non-COVID times, the cooperative school will use it a little bit earlier in the fall as well. So we use it for other activities with the rec center.
so, this question you may not be able to answer, but for $620, how much antifreeze can you dispose of?
Was that a?
55-gallon drum.
That was
Just
a
one drum.
Yeah, I think so.
One drum.
Oh, well, there's two items on there, so there was two 55-gallon drums that were disposed of. So one,
only shows
one was antifreeze and one was, must've been used to mop up a spill, so, trying to, the.
Speedy dry?
Speedy dry, yeah,
Doesn't
type
show
stuff.
that.
You
so.
know what, can I just interrupt you, Glenn? I think it would be much cheaper than having Harper Environmental come and get it to bring it to the Household Hazardous Waste Collection. You can do that.
Back in the day, a non-household
We
was
accept,
not allowed.
we accept
but,
CEGs,
okay.
small quantity generators, and
Okay.
different towns come.
Okay.
Gordon, are you done?
I got a couple more questions.
Sorry.
Legal professional services for $1,900, I was wondering what that was.
That was to, so if you recall a discussion on the Coley property, and that the judgment needed to be renewed in order to essentially collect if we wanted to on that property. So since we were kind of resubmitted to the judge for a renewal.
And then my last thing is, school inspection. Not much money, but Hartland School inspection.
Fire alarm needs to be maintained in all the public buildings.
Okay, that's all I got.
Total aside, but I was shocked when I had a spade and spent $2.58. Dave, the copier,
Yeah.
where is? it
New
used?
copier for the old one kind of faded away. It was like a vintage 1997 one for the clerk's office.
Okay, so it said used, that's.
Yeah, we bought a refurbished one
Okay.
for
great.
800 and something bucks compared to
Okay,
the $1,800 it would have cost for a new one.
good. Gordon hit on my other questions.
We had a perfectly good copier at our office, and we had to junk it because they would no longer service it. There's nothing wrong with it, they wouldn't service it anymore. So, that happens too. Okay,
They felt it was time for you to have a new one. They said, okay, enough with those guys. We
They
just,
call it.
we can't serve, sorry,
Yeah, that's true.
we can't service that one anymore.
Land obsolescence.
yes, it is, yeah. Okay, so anybody else wanna make a motion? Or no, you already
Okay.
made a motion. Everybody in favor, okay.
Yep.
So, new business, Wood Circle one-way request.
Did we want to go back to the public comments? Madam
Yes,
Chairperson?
yes. Any public comments? No, okay. New business.
So, Kim, well, actually, the residents of Wood Circle submitted a petition, a notification to the board, and it's in your packet. And maybe a month ago, maybe 5 weeks ago, I was asked, what it would take to essentially change, Wood Circle from circulation going both directions to a one-way. And essentially, it takes an amendment change. It would need to be added to the one-way streets in town. Presently, we have one, which is Station Road. We would need to amend the ordinance, to include Wood Circle. Select Board can do that, but in this case, I didn't think it was something you'd take upon yourself just to up and do, so the response to this group was to submit something that resembled a petition to the board asking the board to change that to a one-way street, and that's what you have in front of you now. I will just add that because it's off of Route 5, state highway, the signage, the one-way signage would need to be, we would need to obtain a permit from the state of Vermont in order to put the signage up. That's generally pretty simple, but, it's not, a full slam dunk either. So, I guess I just asked the board if, you agreed with the petition that before you take the steps to actually amend the ordinance, that we submit the application to the state of Vermont to put the signage up, and if that goes smoothly, then we can come back and actually amend the permit. I do have the ordinance information in your pamphlet as well, kind of gives the steps to amend the permit ordinance. So there is an administrative process to this, so I just hate to get that administrative process going and then have the state of Vermont tell us something silly. So, I just wanted to kind of point out those steps to you. And, originally, I think that Kim Gibbs and her husband are sitting here tonight. It kind of came through them in email, so I'll leave it to the board.
Dave, can I just ask you to clarify again? I understand about modifying the ordinance, but where does the state come in? Does the state need to approve it?
Not the ordinance, so the signage would be in the state highway right-of-way.
Right.
So anything done in the state highway right-of-way needs to be, you need to essentially obtain a permit, not too unlike what we're doing with the Three Corners intersection, is basically anywhere in the state right-of-way, you have to obtain what's called an 1111 permit. You send it
And
in.
would our distributing the notice about the ordinance, you know, the request for the modification and so on to the public, would that trigger the state to respond, or do we have to go to the state separately?
I need to go with a permit and just specifically say, hey, state, we would like to put 2 signs here. Why, you know, it has to be, you know, a site plan. I have to say, this is where we'd like to put it.
Yeah.
You know, this is the layout, you know, of Route 5 in this corridor, and say, you know, we'd like to put these up, and, you know, essentially send it in with, you know, of course, a little fee and the application packet, and they'll send back a response.
Okay, thanks.
So we need people to come up to the mic, is that right? Okay.
I submitted some paperwork this morning to Dave, and I think you all have copies of it.
Yep.
And it's pretty self-explanatory that we do not need.
Okay, so we're gonna take turns. So first of all, I'd like to hear from the Gibbs, since they submitted the information first. And if you'll stand up here, speak, please introduce yourself.
Thank you. I'm Kim Gibbs. My husband and I reside at 5 Wood Circle, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you about the petition to redirect the traffic flow on Wood Circle to be one-way. We've lived in North Hartland for 15 years and have noticed both an increase in traffic and speed on Route 5, and thus an increase also on Wood Circle because of the daycare that's there now, and also the delivery services, especially during COVID, UPS, Federal Express, etc. So exiting from the north side is extremely dangerous. There are blind spots, especially to the north, but with the increase in traffic, you think you can go, and it's almost better if you have 2 people in the car because it's that dangerous. At that turning point, if you're coming into Wood Circle, especially from the north, coming into Wood Circle, and you meet somebody on that who's coming out, there's no room for 2 cars, 2 vehicles. So you're stopping on Route 5, which in itself is dangerous because of the speed of traffic. The one-way concept really comes from personal observation. We live right on the corner of Route 5 and the Wood Circle exit at the north, or entrance. My family, my neighbors, and friends who have come, not realizing that there was an option. So in fact, we have 10 signatures out of 13 residents that live on Wood Circle who approve the one-way. And the majority understands the need and obligation for safety. And we, those who signed the petition, do not need or want a terrible accident or event to happen before stepping in. Being proactive is much better than reactive. And personally, having 2 teenage girls, we see the difficulty of exiting out, and watching that happen and watching the kids across the street and the drop off. We're right there in those moments, and it's been scary. So it's time to step in. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Any questions?
Kim, I'm not sure if you would know this offhand. I had trouble identifying how many homes are actually on Wood Circle from the map that we have.
1, 2, 3, 4, 6.
6.
Yeah.
Okay. And of all the 10 people, how many households does that represent?
5.
5. Okay. 5 out of the 6 households are saying yes.
No, there's a split decision.
Right.
I
There's
apologize.
yeah.
I'm confused,
Households.
Mary.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 households out of 6
Okay.
is that is
And then,
I didn't
With
sign the
split.
petition.
okay, all right.
yeah.
Okay.
There's a split in one of the households.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks. Did you have a question for her? No, okay. And what's your name?
Kathy Maloney.
Okay, I think next we're gonna hear from the Amiots. You the Amiots?
Yes, yes.
Okay. You wanna come up here, please?
Hi, I'm Jerry Amiot of George and Jerry, and I left off some
We
paperwork this
got them all,
morning.
yep.
And we've lived there 44 years, and we haven't seen any horrible accidents there. And people have the right, and I want to keep saying this over and over again, people have the right on the north end to come down the south end and exit. They're not obliged to go out the north end. They can come back around, and I spoke to everybody about this. I think they understand it, and I just don't see any need to change it. It's just going to impact us on the south end. It's going to impact snow removal. If they can't go, the truck can't go around and plow the way they should. And I don't think that some of these people who signed their action should have. They are renters, which means, in my opinion, they can go home tonight, pack up and leave. And they are not permanent residents of that street. And another lady who signed it said afterwards, oh gee, I guess I shouldn't have signed it because I never ever, I always go in the south end on our corner and I go back around on the south end. So she signed it, and then there's 4 other people on top of that who signed it that are renters. So they want to go home tonight and pack up and leave, they can.
Point taken. Did you
I
want
got a
to
few
say
words I
something?
wanna say.
Yeah, can you come up here? Thank you.
We've lived there over 40 years. There has never been any traffic problems there. Kids play in the street, we know that. We're not complaining about that. What they're trying to do now is gonna make the matter worse than it is now. Because they're claiming all the vehicles are gonna have to go by that house that they're talking about and the daycare. While now, we never could use that end. Those people pretty much never use that end, so our traffic always comes out the other way. And there is no safety problems there. There was a safety problem here a while back when they started this. There was weeds growing up along Route 5.
On the north end.
I called V-Trans, he says, I'll take care of it. The next morning at 7 o'clock, he had weed whacked the brush. So here we're trying to solve a problem that does not exist. We have never had a problem there with traffic. And you're gonna make the matter worse if you make it this way. Number one, it could affect house values. My driveway, when that house was made right off 5 to just drive in. I paid $6,500 a couple of years ago to fix that driveway. You turn that road around, I can almost not get in my driveway from the other way. This one-way traffic thing started 2 or 3 years ago by the same people. They stopped at my house and asked me about it, and I said, I don't think it's a good idea. Now we're back to the same goddamn thing that ain't gonna amount to nothing. Okay?
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, okay, go ahead, and then you, sorry.
Hi, I'm Jeff. It's nice to meet you all. I disagree with you, George. I feel there is going to be an issue, particularly on
You
the north.
created the issue.
Okay,
Particularly on the
let's-
north end of that.
Please talk to me.
You started the issue.
Please talk to us. Please talk to us.
I will talk.
Thank you, thank you.
There is going to be an issue on that end. It is not simply the vegetation, it is the speed coming through Route 5, coming down through there. There are times when people come through there at least 50, 55 miles an hour. I've seen it myself. We've had young kids, we've had dogs run over that yard, and it is dangerous. I believe that there's gonna come a time when it's not so much about the folks that live on that circle, it's the people visiting, it's the business behind us, the daycare. They don't know they can go the other end. They'll turn around and try to come out the north end. Something is going to happen there. It's not just about the vegetation trimming, it's the speed coming down. And if we eliminate that by making this one way, it's gonna be 100% safer than it is right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and what's your name?
Kathy Maloney.
Okay.
So, my husband and I have lived at Tenwood Circle for about 34 years. We've raised 2 kids, all throughout their learning to drive without incident. And I respect their opinion, but I think the real issue is the speed of the traffic on Route 5 coming up, where we don't have a chance to, you don't have enough vision to see before, traffic shooting by. I think that's the core of the issue, not the traffic on our street, because it's just 6 houses. It's only 6 of us, and we should be able to work together to, you know, the daycare people, I would suggest, should tell their clients, just don't go out that way. Go out on the south side, it's that simple. I, for one, probably only go in the north side 3 times a month. But if it gets rerouted, that means at least 6 times a week, 5 to 6 times a week, I'm gonna be going in on the north side. So you're gonna add my traffic and my husband's traffic to a side where we say it's too crowded with all the cars and the daycare and stuff. Right now, we don't even have to go that way, neither do the ambulance or anybody visiting us. You'll never get Casella or the FedEx people to reroute there. It's how you come off of Route 5. So if Casella's coming up to head to White River, they're gonna swing in on our side and go out the other side. If you're coming the other way, it's likely you're gonna come in on the north end and go out the other side for the services. So that may be, you know, we can't change that. They're gonna do what they're gonna do. But yes, the vegetation can get high, and it needs to be cut. I will say this thing about the winter. For me, coming home, if it's snowy and you're coming up Route 5 to make the turn on the north end, if it was one way, I'd have to slow down, make a sharp right, and then gain again, which can be worse. Because at least if I come in the south end, you've got momentum, and then you're at the top of the crest, and you have more room to go in, and anybody can do that. And I will say one thing on behalf of George, that big snowstorm that we had this past winter, where, you know, everybody was locked down, I don't know how many inches we got. I made it home, and I knew I couldn't get in there, because that hadn't been plowed all day. Our whole street hadn't, snow must have been up to here. But I did continue up to the south end, and George had taken it upon himself to clear the first third of that street, so at least I was able to get in and get around the corner by the big pine tree and off Route 5. So, and he did that on his own. So, you know, I don't think the real issue is the traffic. If the daycare can just tell her clients, but the few she has, don't go out that way. I mean, it doesn't take, it's not rocket science to figure it out the first time that this is not the way to go out. You know, people are pretty intelligent, they'll figure it out. Then to reroute this and make it a permanent thing, a permanent traffic rule. So that's my opinion. That's why I didn't sign it, and I don't intend to sign it, and I still intend to go in the way I've always been going in. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy.
Rebuttal if you'd like.
Sure.
So, I think a lot of what you heard has to do with Route 5 speed, and I agree with that. That's another project for revitalization of North Hartland, which I'll talk about later. But to exercise the freedom, you know, to make your choice is essentially resistant to life-saving efforts while operating a motor vehicle. Yet we are highly regulated as motor vehicle operators. That we need permission from the government granted in the form of a license. Your vehicle must be registered and inspected through a regulatory process. Then we must follow restrictions such as laws about speed limits and traffic direction. Too much individual freedom on roads threatens everybody's safety. Without town or state intervention, more lives are going to be lost from dangerous driving without the assurance of safety for our neighbors, our friends, and all others, yes, even the UPS driver. Personal freedom related to this petition has the consequences that would be perilous. We don't want to wait for that catastrophic event. And we don't need hindsight. What if Wood Circle was one way? For these reasons, the privilege of driving justifiably comes with oversight and judgment for safety. And furthermore, because almost all the residents on Wood Circle agree, as evident by their signatures, we have a north blind spot, we have increased traffic, and we have speed. In fact, I had a conversation with the librarian of Hartland who attended my community event. She dropped off books at the daycare center several times a month, and she wasn't aware. And you know, it is one of those things, if you want to make that known, then you make it known, but if anybody's driving in, they should have the option and know that it's one way. It's a safe exit out the south side. She said she had a dangerous potential accident leaving. And so I just give this to you to contemplate, but those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kim, I lost track there. We were saying that there's a freedom
Well, if they're
of
saying a
driving, and
personal
you're relating
freedom
that to this
to
issue? I don't
choose,
get it.
personal freedom to choose whether you go in the south, out the south, in the north, out
Yeah.
the north.
Sure.
We do have some regulatory requirements that then need to step in if it's a safety issue, and that's what I'm asking for. Is your approval to move forward with the state to step in and say it is a safety issue?
Mhm.
Otherwise, the personal freedom and expecting that people are gonna know,
Mhm.
even, you know, it just doesn't make any sense. So I'm just asking for your help with that. We just are trying to get in front of things.
Mhm.
I don't wanna be here 44 years and have 10 stories. I wanna be here and have safety.
Sure, okay.
And I think that's where this is coming
What
from.
what the relationship is.
Exactly, exactly. Any other questions?
Do you have a thank you. Do you have a question?
Another comment.
You want to come up here, please?
So I really think that none of the other residents of Wood Circle are here tonight. So I do challenge some of the signatures that are on the petition. Also, I think the real crux of the matter is still continues to be the speed on Route 5. Because if I'm going out on the south end or turning in to come into my street on the south end, it gives me a longer, cleaner vision to see the traffic. So if they're going fast, I know I can't go. But if I'm trying to turn in on the north end, you're right at the top, and then so you don't have the reaction time. So that's one thing. And again, I guess just like the data we do, there have been zero. Not that we want any, but zero. In 34 years that I've lived there and raised 2 kids. The Codys had 2 kids. People in the daycare before had at least a boy and a girl with no issues. So that's the data we get.
Thank you. Did you have
I
something?
think Kathy said just about what I wanted to say, except one thing. I'm gonna get it in here. If they're worried about all this traffic here, they created some of it by putting in a garage apartment. And then because we have no zoning in Hartland, they put in a daycare at the end of the street. So that has added more traffic, we know that. But it hasn't been a huge amount of traffic, and I don't think there's a problem. And we raised 2 kids and a granddaughter who lived there for a while. They all got their license. If they have a choice, they pretty much go out the south end on our end. And we go out the south end unless we're bringing something around the back street to throw in the woodshed, we do that. But pretty much we always go out to south end. And I think the whole thing comes down to everybody has a choice. And they're gonna take our choice away from us. And I don't think that's fair. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to be clear, the daycare's not ours.
I know.
Okay.
Yep.
No, I know it's not yours.
Okay, okay,
I'd like to say one more thing.
okay.
There is no problem there with traffic or kids or anything else. There isn't a problem. So why change something that isn't broke? There's not a problem there. They have the right to go left, or they have the right to go left or right. If you don't want to go out the north end, go out the south end. Nobody's ever stopped them to do it. So if you change this, it's just for nothing. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I think we've gotten enough testimony, and we will need to discuss it ourselves. But before we do that, we'll maybe see if what the state says. I mean, they're not gonna let you put a sign in. Or do you want us to discuss it first? and then-
So, is that,
Yeah.
yeah, wouldn't, before we take the step of actually putting it in and, taking the time to do that, if there was, a little bit more, of a thought process from the select board, if the select board felt comfortable, I guess I'd take that step if you were for sure behind.
Okay,
If the
right.
select board was behind making it a one-way, then I think then, we'll start the process. And the first step would be to submit an application to the state of Vermont, and then we'll set up, some steps to amend the ordinance. If there's not a overwhelming desire to do that, then I think we can let it rest.
So I think we'll wanna make a site visit?
No,
No?
I think we have enough information, and I know the street.
I
You know
visited.
it. Gordon?
I know it well enough. I don't need to go down there.
I visited it last week. Okay. So we'll just discuss it. Anybody have any questions?
I have some observations. I'm sorry that the neighborhood had to be torn apart over something like this. It sounds like, it's just sad. Neighborhoods that shouldn't need to do that. We've sat here many, many times listening to people talk about speed control. We know in Four Corners, people don't reduce their speed, and residents there are worried about backing out and pulling out. When I come down Walford Brothers Road onto Draper and pull into the Hartland Road, I can't see people coming down that hill. And certainly 35 miles an hour is generally not the speed they're keeping. So I think if I heard correctly, people have a choice here. They could go out the south end or the north end. So I'm not sure why personally, my opinion is we don't need to change it to one way.
So I can't advocate for either position, because people who are my neighbors who live right next to me have very strongly held opinions on different sides of this. So I'm not going to take a strong stance on either side. But what I will say is that there's been really consistently a sort of complaint that we have these major state roads that run through our town, and that our town is structured around, and that those state roads make it really difficult for us to assert our autonomy over control of traffic. So for instance, the whole thing with redoing 3 corners was about this fight with the state to, even though we have this state road going through, we can control how we want traffic to go through our town. So that's been a persistent issue for a really long time. And we can try, and we should do this simultaneously, to do what we can at the state level to reduce the speed, see if we could get an additional engineering study, whatever it might be. We definitely should, but we also don't have to be held hostage by the process of the state. So we have an opportunity, if we were to say, we see this as a safety issue and it really actually is important, we have an opportunity to take a place, if we see it as a safety issue, assert our autonomy as a town and make sure a problem doesn't arise. So I'm not willing to advocate for either side as to if this is a really strong safety position or safety issue. But if we as a board identified it as such, we actually have the ability to rectify it, which we can't say for everything on Route 5 or Route 12. So that would be my thought. Also, I'm a renter. I'm a renter.
There's
And
no-
I work dang hard up here on this select board.
There's no discrimination for renters.
Renters are legal voters. We're
Yes.
allowed to sign petitions. We're allowed to advocate for the place in which we live. We're allowed to serve on the select board.
Oh, thank you, I wasn't aware of that.
Amen.
And I,
But that is not a criticism of you, just a general thing. Like, renters are humans too, y'all.
I'm very happy that you clarified that, and I did make phone calls to area town clerks, and once more, I come out with this, well, we feel, or we think, or we don't know. Well, there was no hard rule either way, okay? And I just thought that I'd throw that in. Renters have the ability to go home tonight, clean their house up.
So,
take it.
actually, Geraldine, I will tell you the exact same thing I told Kim and Jeff when they approached me. If you ever want help with anything, just ask me. I will call the Secretary of State's office. I will get you all the information you need and give that to you so that you can put together whatever argument you think is best. So, anytime you need something, just contact me and I'll find it out for you.
I didn't know that.
Okay, I have a few thoughts. For one, I don't like to buckle into what the real problem is. And that's, if you make that one way, you're saying nothing we can do about the speeders. And we'll fix it that way. And it's not just Wood Circle that has a problem. It's everywhere. I can't leave the hill under normal circumstances where I live up on Hartland Hill, and tonight was not an exception. It wasn't what you'd call a close call, but it was like I would love if I had on my car a little thing that squirts red paint or sticks out something that makes a big scratch. And a guy that has no manners whatsoever when you meet him on the road. And it happens all the time.
Can I say one thing? I do agree very much with a lot of the proposals that Kim and Jeff are making. But I also think that we need police presence in North Hartland.
Well, that's
Let's keep everybody
Yeah.
from going 60 miles an hour because our donuts are ready in the morning.
the police issue is something that's
It's a
for
horrible, we know that it's a horrible decision to make. We know that. It costs money to do all these projects. I do agree with them on that, that we could get some police presence up there, even one morning a week. I think we could get people to realize, we got a cop here, he's gonna give you a ticket, and maybe the next time you won't go through town as fast.
I'd like to throw in another word. If people think the south exit is, there's no close calls there. In the wintertime, I go out and I shovel off the snowbank that is built up from Route 5 and from the circle, because with a car you can't see up the road to get out of there. So I go out and I shovel it after they plow. There's many times that I go out on my driveway and there's not a car coming. I pull out the driveway and I hit Route 5 and there's a car right on my rear end. If they come over that hill at 50 miles an hour, it's just as dangerous there as it is at the north end. So I don't know what this one-way street is gonna amount to.
Okay, thank you. We need to keep talking ourselves. No, go ahead, I wanna hear what,
I-
the rest of what
No,
you have to say.
I just think that the proper way is for you guys to work together and see what you can do by agreeing to use one way voluntarily and try to talk to the people who use the road. If that's a better solution, then you maintain your freedom to go in and out where you need to go for certain reasons. And just a minute. And then if that doesn't work, you still have the option to turn it into one way. If you turn it into one way now, there's probably no backsies. It's gonna be one way forever and ever. So,
I agree with what you said, that we need to work together. I don't think we've ever sat down as a group to figure out what the issue was and how to fix it
And I
without
do-
going to legal.
Right, and I do really agree with a lot of things about police presence and trying to keep the speeders down. I wholeheartedly agree with that.
there is,
You also have to remember that these truckers that haul gravel have to make a living. There are cars that go by, there's probably one Sunday that went by so fast that I can't tell you what kind of car it was. He's probably going 60 miles an hour. But that don't happen that often, but every day some cars are speeding through there.
So it
But
sounds
we're
like,
not talking about speeding here, we're talking about a one-way street.
well, we are talking one way, but speeding's coming up an awful lot, so I'm
Yes,
wondering.
yes, I
you
fully
know-
agree with you.
Route 5.
Right, on Route 5. So, okay,
And
we,
just one more thing, could I say just one more thing? And I-
that'll be it. That will be it.
Maya has all these people on our street that are a lot younger. He's 83 years old. He gets out there with a shovel. He takes care of that end of that street in the winter. And when he was plowing for a friend, I'm out there. And I kept that end of that street until the plow could come around. I'm very glad to do it. Gives me a little exercise. Actually gives me a lot of exercise. And I'm glad to do it. But not one of those other people who are a lot younger than this man has ever stopped and said, George, I'll run the garage and I'll get another shovel and I'll help you. So, you know, I just want that thrown in, that we're trying on that end to try to keep that corner clean. I got a big old four-wheel drive. I can
George.
okay,
keep
that was
my
more,
own.
that was more than one thing. Thank you.
Thank you, George and Geraldine.
Thank you very much. Do you have anything you would like to say or ask?
It's concerning to hear the neighbors in
It's very concerning.
such disagreement.
Yeah.
But I'm not convinced that a one-way street is the answer.
Can I make a small proposition, Mary?
Yes?
Can you all want to hang out one afternoon, on a Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon, down at the green with some camping chairs, have a little conversation, see what proactive solutions we can come to. Let's try to implement them. Let's say, hey, can we go forward with this? And if we do go forward with it in good faith, and there are still problems, bring it back to us. You still have the petition.
We don't have to be out on the green. We can do it on my breezeway.
We can do it. I love your breezeway. Haven't had a chance to sit on it, so I'd be happy to do it on your
Anytime you
breezeway.
want.
We did try that, we did have it open for us.
So let's try it really intentionally, Kim.
We went to the state within the last 18 to 24 months to ask for one of those speed cat wagons, the radar feedbacks, and they came back with a feeble explanation of, oh, it's broken. So I think.
I don't think they even have one, Phil.
I'm sorry?
I don't even think they have one. Phil.
Well, they did, because Chris came back and sort of said it was broken right now. So, maybe at least as a select board, we can make that query again to our local V-Trans to say, we could use that on Route 12, Route 5, and
Many places.
get some feedback.
Right.
And then maybe we also have to investigate one for ourselves. I don't know what they cost.
Bill, can I ask a question?
Yep.
Does Vermont law allow the use of speed cameras?
Not to give tickets. That was a Supreme Court decision not too long ago, like 7 years ago or something.
Speed is certainly a recurring
Yeah, I
theme
think speed,
everywhere.
yeah, speed everywhere in town is a big problem.
We should get that speed limit.
Okay, so I think we have, you've worn us out, we've heard what you had to say, and really appreciate you coming in person and for your testimony and your documents, and I hope that you can work this out, because it's disturbing for those of us who don't live there to see that there's disharmony in such a small neighborhood. So you're welcome to stay. The next thing is North Hartland Community Update, which you may want to listen to Kim.
Well, I think a lot of it's already been said, but
Okay.
I'm happy to update you on the proposals. So recently, I graduated from the Leadership Upper Valley class of 2021, and the program provided a deeper understanding of volunteerism, community impact, and execution of ideas, good ideas, and opportunities. So my approach in creating the Village of North Heartland's walkable and vibrant proposal was organized around imagining, connecting, planning, and action. Understanding that many proposed initiatives require a marathon, such as sidewalks, perhaps a speed sign or a crosswalk, there are things we can do. The Vermont Agency of Transportation in 2020 reported that the Vermont themes for crashes and safety are around impairment, distraction, speed, roadway design, and lack of crossing locations. 3 out of those 5 we can impact. Working together to make change, to lower the speed limit, to add radar, speed feedback signs, adjust vehicle flow, adding sidewalks, adding a crosswalk in front of the post office brings the idea to drivers that this is actually a village where people live. They drive like it's the interstate. In addition to increasing the safety efforts, my hope was really to realign the community, to get to know your neighbors, and I co-hosted an open event with Curtis on June 13th, and I invited the entire North Hartland community to this event. 15 residents joined, and we brainstormed ideas for the involvement. And the themes were safety, so traffic speed, walkability, and I have bullet points under those ideas. Vibrancy, like on the green, adding benches, picnic tables, creating a feeling like what other towns have, like Woodstock and other areas that have villages that are recognized by the state of Vermont. Plantings, electricity, so that we can have events. We talked about Courier Park, a pavilion, a pole barn, a gazebo, something that increases the usability of this very empty and unusable park. We also talked about the schoolhouse and the condition that it's in, what needs to be done, is it rentable and where does the rent go? Library hours, such as those ideas. We have an influx of children in the North Hartland community. We also talked about community events, so the Green or Courier Park hosting music, ice cream socials. We actually have a save the date that's going to go out for August 28th for a community block party, and I think we're going to do that in Courier Park. It creates a lot more availability of parking, and we just want people to, we're taking off our masks, we can look each other in the eyes and have conversations and connect as humans. So a gentleman in California has paid $8 to send me overnight express mail of pictures of the North Hartland Park, and he wanted me to use them as visual aids to support revitalization.
What?
He said that he was reared in the community when there were 2 small schools, but his heart was still here in North Hartland. He wants to continue to be involved and hopes to contribute in aid for a positive future of the village. I promised him I would stay in touch and let him know what our plans were and to share the photos with Curtis. So being part of a community means being part of something greater than you. It's about sharing, growing, and opening up to who you are. And I appreciate your time
And if you have any questions, I'm happy to talk to you. I do know what needs to happen to get those road signs that you spoke about. I know what needs to happen for the crosswalk and walkways, which is way in the future. But it really does start here to make a proposal to the state, so.
I have a
Happy
first
to work with
question.
you on that.
Do you have those pictures now?
I do.
Because I'm sure everyone else will want to see
Absolutely.
them
Yeah,
as
I'd love to
well.
see them.
Not necessarily, I wanna go
I'll
home
leave,
tonight.
and he has a map, he provided
Well, you don't have to look
a
at them.
vintage map of North Hartland, in fact, so.
Who
What
is-
is the
who
gentleman's
is
name?
that?
Yeah,
He says J.A.
that's
Oh,
it.
he didn't tell you his last name?
No, and he sends me an email and it says.
Thanks, Geraldine.
J.
Good night.
It says-
Thank you.
It says J.A. on it, so I'm not sure, but I feel his passion and we're gonna be best buds.
Oh,
So
wow.
they're in there. So no further questions?
I really liked your presentation. We all got a copy of that.
Okay.
Really attractive and
We had
Positive.
a great time on the park and just the energy from people wanting to get together again, and certainly the speed is at the top. I do have funding for the signs, although I don't think it's fair to have a local person pay for them. But I do have funding. If we split the cost on those radar signs, they're willing to do it.
now, what kind of signs are these?
These are the ones that flash if you're going too fast.
So I think they're called speed wagons.
Well, they're radar, yeah. And we went through Manchester Village, or Manchester, Vermont recently, and it even says, like this saying, and then when you make it, it says, thank you, or you got it, or.
There's one like that in Chester.
There's positive feedback. So Jeff and I also spent our own money and we bought signs that say, please slow down. We're putting them where we can on town property. So we're just trying to make an impact in that regard.
I believe, for what it's worth, currently they're on private property. So right?
Asked for use.
Yes.
And just like the signatures,
not
we
that
did not
bad.
coerce anyone.
Yeah, the meeting was really great, and I think we ended it with everyone having a sense that there are ways to build community through action, not just through spending money. So by starting with activities and looking at donating benches or
Low-hanging fruit
tables,
kinds of
things like that. So there's definitely, the main emphasis to begin with is not on asking the town for hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And that's true. That's
There are
absolutely
That's
an
good.
awful lot of good benefits to using a place like the park there, the Curry Park.
right.
I mean, beyond what happens right there. Also, if you're using that, that means you're not off driving your car somewhere, burning up fuel and,
Well, that's the walkability piece.
yeah. And
Walking
I,
on Route 5 right now, just to the post
I
office.
I think the park is usable. You
Agree.
mentioned, is it, I mean, I think it's a question of, is it usable or is it unused?
Yeah, underused, yeah.
But I think it's underused. I
I
think
just
it
don't
is.
think it's
I think it
welcoming.
is
I mean, there's
used.
nothing to do there. There's no benches, there's,
Well,
we gotta create sort of that welcome feel. There
Yeah.
used to be, as you'll see in some of these pictures, some beautiful benches. My parents walk there, the renters, to the post office, and they walk around, there's no place for them to sit. And so Dad has to bring his walker with him to make sure he can sit. My family also painted 50 rocks with inspirational sayings, and we placed them in areas where people would normally be walking, near the post office, in the crooks of trees over by Courier Park, not where the mowers would mow, and it just inspiring to try to just bring people together.
That's lovely.
You mentioned the library, is that in the big building where the post office is?
No, so the librarian from Hartland attended our meeting, the community meeting, and she's really interested in starting a program in North Hartland because of the influx of children. And she thought maybe using that schoolhouse that sits abandoned on Courier Park, or figuring out a way to use, if there was a gazebo or undercover place, a way to use, to bring children together. K9 has 7 of those children new to the to North Hartland, and we love having that business in our town. But yes, it was the librarian's idea.
Yeah.
So there's
K-9,
no,
is that
not
the
at this
daycare?
time.
No, it's a canine kids.
No,
It's
no.
a boarding, doggy boarding place.
So, was that Amy McMullen who came up?
Yeah.
She's gonna be on my kid committee for the block party to organize games and activities, and she
great.
is looking forward to that, yeah.
I think a lot of the ideas with, especially around Courier Park and the green, match with what Dave has been working on and doing over the past while, you know, maintaining town assets, making sure they're being utilized and serving the community in the best way possible. So I think there are lots of really good ideas to get a lot of bang for the buck by doing things like putting fencing around the basketball court and stuff like that can really be helpful.
Yeah, Jeff and I coached softball for 7 years from the Hartland School, and often we'd have practice in the North Hartland field because we lived right there. Brought more of the people there to see what is available. It's not maintained in a great way, but it was important to us to be there, and it's actually nice. It's got that playground and it has activities, but there's no porta potty, there's no water, that kind of stuff. So we actually had a wet party, sliding party there as our end of year, and it was a big hit, so it was really fun.
So I have a question.
Sure.
It was mentioned rentals or fixing up a rental, and are we talking your parents?
Yes, we have an in-law apartment above our garage, so we care for my parents, and they are 81 and 77, so I feel like that's what I need to do as a community member and as a family.
Very
I
commendable.
would just say it's not an official renter.
I
It's
know,
nothing
but-
official. They give us a few bucks when they can to help with
It
utilities.
just
We
doesn't,
actually cover a
It's not
lot,
an
but
income,
it's not,
it's just.
yeah, that's Jerry's assumption, it's not.
it's just, it really points out the need for your community to try to mend your differences. And,
That's actually the first time we've ever been at odds, and we've been living here for
yeah.
15, 17
Oh, good.
years. I've always got along with them, never had an issue. That's the first time I've seen that.
Oh, that's good. Well, I applaud your efforts, and yeah, it's great, thank you very much.
And we hope that our fellow select board members will come if we have a little
Well,
community
you know,
event. in
I
North
wasn't
Harbor.
sure if we were.
You're invited.
Okay.
The whole town is invited.
Is, all
Of
right.
course.
Yeah, it's beyond the village of North Hartland, but it's
Okay.
just to start something, to bring, so people start to know what is there, right? What's available, what can we do together?
So you
There
said-
is too much separateness, so.
You said August 28th.
Yes,
Okay.
mark your calendar, save the date.
Okay.
Curtis, did you wanna keep these by any?
I want to look at them, but I don't want to hurt
You
them.
can have them, you're not gonna hurt them. He wants you to take them.
Yeah, those are great
All
photos.
right, thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Thank you, Kim.
Pat wrote down some things here, because she read this. I've got my wife read this, and she wrote down that there used to be a community club in North Hartland years ago, which is just banded, I guess. I think the church isn't as active as it used to be,
It's true.
and, I don't know what that is. The library's closed, the store's closed.
There was a brothel there back in the day, and that's
Yeah.
I'm sure you know.
Well, we don't worry about that.
Brothel.
Never heard that.
I never did either.
There was.
What is DM co-op? I don't know what that means.
I don't know.
Oh, well.
All right, we used up our time for that.
Blew past that one, Mary.
Okay. So, you're welcome to stay. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you
Have
all.
a good night.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question.
I know.
If we got 10, I think we'd probably.
Yeah, we do.
How many do we have?
Three. Because we got that village designation.
So, yeah, actually, technically, so the village where you have a separate governmental entity, we don't have. So, like, for instance, Woodstock, there's a Woodstock Village and a Woodstock Town. So we're Hartland Town, but we do have 3 historic villages in town, of which have received the state village designation as
I don't know.
designated village.
Right.
Somebody should, it doesn't, I just thought might be somebody
And
knew.
it's our tax map shows the extent of the village. I know Three Corners runs up to the sign shop.
So I don't know if the overlay, the village overlay is on the tax map or not. There is a village overlay, with Jay and, you know, the village designation paperwork. I don't believe it's, I don't think, maybe they've got it, but I don't think so.
Yeah. And I'm really struck with, I thank you, Curtis, and thank you, Kim, for organizing it. And I had intention to go Sunday, and I got a work gig at the last moment. But looking back from this, you know, it's really the same issue as we have with Foster Meadow. The people in the village want to walk more and use it more, and we're talking about Sumner's Falls and the management plan, looking forward with that. So I think, you know, one of the thoughts that I've been percolating, and I'm not going to go into it tonight, is how are we using our public spaces? What can we do to actually enhance them, much like Kim highlighted the various categories. So I think there's an opportunity for us there, and go. I have a very tight community because we had a parade last year, you know, on 4th of July, and now everybody talks to one another, except for, of course, there's some people that just don't, you know, and never will. You know, when the trees came down last Wednesday, you know, long before the town crew came out, we had neighbors cutting them. So I'm not sure that's legal. I was a little uncomfortable.
Well, I think it's got to be legal, isn't it?
If it's on private property.
Well, as long as no one gets hurt, it's okay.
I mean,
Right.
I understand it happened pretty well across town, that a lot of people stepped in. You know, it's not something we want to just, you know, call people up and tell them to start cutting things up, but,
Yeah.
We
No.
even had some local groundskeepers that were trapped. So they just wanted to go home, so they got
Right.
chainsaws.
And they had their own stuff with
But that's off topic. But I think the sense of community building is something we should be looking at.
well, it's called provincialism, I guess, but
Hmm.
it's something that's kind of going away. I mean, everybody wants to go out and see the whole world and
Mhm.
find the same exact McDonald's in every town and buy the same hamburger. It's really nice to have something individual.
All right, so I think we're going to just let that subject rest for a while, the one way. Maybe work your magic there, Curtis, in North Heartland. See, because to me it sounds like a real Route 5 speeding problem.
It is.
So,
It is.
It's a very tight turn there, and if people are going fast, it's tough.
yeah.
Dave, do you know anything about the process of reducing, I think you could reduce speed down to 30, like we have here.
Yeah, it's
We
30,
do
yeah,
that
do
in
that.
North Heartland. I think it's a bit of a process.
takes a speed study. You gotta work with the state of Vermont.
Yeah.
Bob, it went from 50 to 45 out by Chet Pacho's places out there,
Yeah,
and
right.
Josh Boynton's. I think he worked a little bit on that. That's all I'll say.
It's 35 in the village in
It's,
North Heartland. I always slow down at 35.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
that's
this-
what
Well,
it is.
you're coming into, so that the speed decreases and hits at 30 coming into, you know, you're coming into a stop zone as well, so that affects
That's true.
a
Oh,
lot. So you're going from, you know, 50, I think, is it, well, 50 to
50 on
45.
this side.
Out, you know, by Chris Neppenberg's house there, as you're coming into town, you know, it's a 45 or 50.
40. From 4 corners to 3 corners is 40.
It's 35
Yeah, but
and
he's,
3
I
quarters.
think he's,
I mean, in 4
talking
corners
before
it's
that.
35.
Does it go to 35 and then it speeds up again, but then as you hit like the rec center, it comes down to, and then it hits a 30 mile per hour, X amount of space in before, as you come into the stop, so.
And I'm very guilty of coming down Miller Hill.
It's tough to
you
slow
know,
down that
and,
much.
You know, yeah.
Your
Yeah,
bike's
that's
almost
like-
going 40.
Well, I'm coasting and I'm all the way past, you know, by the firehouse, and I'm still kind of like slowing down a little.
I was cured of that years ago, because there was a police
Mhm.
officer right at Meacham's facing,
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
All right, let's get on to old business, 3 corners intersection, Dave.
How come there's no red clover in here, the Vermont flower?
Oh, yeah.
So, we had a conversation on this a couple months ago, and at that point, it was just basically, you know, we need to put 10 trees up in the 3 corners intersection. That's about the knowledge I had at that point in time. The state essentially went ahead and took the steps of actually telling us where we are going to put these trees and the types of trees that they are going to be. So the one flexibility we have in this is that they gaffed a little bit in that they show 11 trees and the permit says 10. So there's flexibility probably over by Garthwaite's house. I know he knows he's getting, when we negotiated the land easement with him, you know, he agreed to put, you know, the statue over towards, closer to his property. I'm not sure a tree was a part of that negotiation, so if he doesn't want the tree, that's one place that we can drop the tree. The other ones are pretty well, other than in front of Damon Hall, which they are very high on. The other ones are in the state right away. And again, they're pretty tied to the 10 trees. And there's a little bit of flexibility on the layout of the trees in the green space, simply because if you recall a conversation on a cement pad that we need to put there to basically house a Green Mountain Power, I want to say transmitter, but
Box.
you know, a box. So obviously we can't put the tree in or on the box or the cement pad, so there'll be a little bit of flexibility there to make room for that, but this is what is tied to the project. So I certainly wanted to bring this and share it with the board as to what is being discussed. It's actually, you know, again, beyond kind of discussion, but this is what is tied to the project as we go forward and what will be expected. So, you know, sorry, Phil, I kind of chuckled in that, you know, you keep bringing up the fact that we didn't have a landscaping plan.
Well,
The state went ahead and said, you know what?
But who's paying for it?
We are.
We are.
Yeah.
Well, through, you know, through the use of state grant money as a part of that, but there is certainly a large percentage of it on us.
Yeah, yeah. And Dave, the other thing that caught my attention from our prior conversations here was the concrete going to be removed from the substructure of Route 5 in that turn. And they go into great detail about how deep the root structures need to be and
Yep.
so on and so forth. So does that impact the other part of the project as far as when they tear up the space? Have we increased costs because we're now saying we have to go down below the concrete?
I knew we've been
I think we've known that right along.
planning on needing to remove the concrete
Okay, that's great. I wasn't aware of that.
since after maybe my first year. That's been a discussion and goes back to the Matt Peeler days. that was gonna end up coming out.
Okay, excellent.
So, Gordon, I want to know, what do you think of these choices of trees?
was
You were
gonna
gonna
say
say
I was,
same thing?
I like honey locust, and I don't know what street keeper honey locust is.
Well, it has a narrow crown in maturity, so
Yeah.
it will fit well into this
Yeah, I read-
location
I
and
read
will
that.
not block views.
I read that.
And what about the
But
other?
I don't know about what a celebration maple is. Why aren't we just having a sugar maple? I don't know. But maybe this is something that's a little better for,
I've never heard of a celebration maple.
And maybe it keeps its leaves longer.
I'm guessing these people know what they're doing. I
Yeah.
hope so,
Yeah, and I assume the elm is that new generation of elm
yeah,
that's,
I'm glad to see a red oak.
resistant.
And yes, and the elms hopefully is a tree that has been bred to be elm.
Elm,
So this was a landscape architect on behalf of the state of Vermont that
Yeah.
got their hands on this, and back it came. It actually didn't just come back quick, it spent a lot of time in this department
Yeah.
then before it came back.
and Gordon, I was serious when I looked at the grass mixes and said, why not red clover? If it's our state flower, you think they would sort of put it into,
So, where is that? I didn't read that.
on the tree list, the
The
top
next-
left.
Oh,
Right here.
oh, it's too fine for me to read. Any, red clover is a biennial plant.
Okay,
It grows small the first year, big the second year, and then it
and that
dies.
goes dormant,
And if you keep it mowed off with a lawnmower, it never
never comes
never
back.
reseeds.
Right, right,
So you can forget about it in a lawn.
okay.
Oh, wow.
That's why I don't cut my lawn.
Now, white clover spreads with rhizomes, and that'll come in if you don't put any herbicide on.
Yeah,
Hopefully, we won't do anything
hopefully
like that.
none of that will happen here.
Yeah, I don't know much
Okay.
about hard fescue.
So I'm backing off from my red clover, Dave. so-
Yeah. And ryegrass gets it going, creeping fescue. I think
So
That sounds good to me.
the second piece of the update is that we are gonna do 3 borings in the area, basically the area of the green space, where the bulk of the trenching is going to occur for the underground utilities. And that's just to ensure that we don't hit any ledge, midway through the trenching process. There's a general feeling that, based upon the fact that there's a major intersection there, that we shouldn't be hitting ledge, but you never know. Better find out now and prepare for it than be trenching midway through the project and find it then. So that did receive, so we also, just for the borings on Route 5, we did need to submit a separate permit application to them for that, separate from this. They did permit it, but we do need to have a pre-boring meeting. I'll call it they call it a pre-construction meeting. It's not really construction, but we'll need to have a pre-construction meeting with the District 4 folks and a state guy and Dan Pecker, engineer, prior to doing the borings. And then a follow-up when we're done. And I suspect that their main concern is simply, what are we gonna do with Route 5 traffic while we're, boring away there.
So this is right in the road.
It'll be in and around, Route 5. It'll be, yes. So they won't quite allow us to do, I don't remember when we did some borings down on Queechee Road with
Yeah.
Mike Willis, a couple of guys just kind of got out there and
Hold on.
stopped it. The state of Vermont is not quite that lax, so we're gonna,
Now, what's the diameter of these?
I don't know the specifics of what they'll use to do the boring, but, the holes are usually,
Okay.
about that big maybe.
4 to 6 inches,
Yeah.
And
So,
when will that be?
we don't have a date as of yet. So,
And, all right, I have a question about this map, tree protection fence or something they said. What's that look like?
I'm not sure if I can tell you that. I'm not sure where you're looking.
It's yellow.
Well, that's for trees that are already there, isn't it? trees that are there.
Oh,
There
okay.
Are there trees there?
Well, except for here, what do they say here? To protect trees at top of wall, add tree protection fence.
One thing I've seen is they stand boards up all the way around the tree and put a
The black,
cable or something around to
Yeah.
pinch them onto the tree, so that,
It's just this, Mayor. Just a little fence.
well, that's,
Probably because when you put in a young tree, the chance of it being.
No, they're not talking about the, that's what Gordon was saying, they're not
Right.
they're talking about existing trees.
Well,
maybe there's some of both.
Maybe.
Because you're right, that's what that is there.
I also expected us during construction, to kind of keep that as a protection area, because if you look at where that corner is, that's a new, you know, that's all gonna be kind of dug up, you know, so that's Garthwaite and Matt, you know, that's where the triangle disappears. And where you see kind of a joint driveway between Garthwaite and Matt Dunn, so that's all kind of new construction area in there.
God, someone can read this dang.
Same thing over by the bank, you see a little bit there, that's gonna be,
Yeah.
that'll be kind of the same thing. So I believe that that's what that's for.
All right, what else, anything else about that? Dave?
On this, that is it, as far as the Three Corners intersection update goes.
Dave, I'm not being silly here, but do you think we can do construction next summer, or are we still kind of chasing against agreements, and just seems like we're getting hit with new things?
So hence, you know, when you talk new projects and things, I kind of preach, you know, patience and, you know, focus and things. You know, this is not an easy project. The state of Vermont, obviously is telling us, you know, even though we have taken this on because we felt a safety need, they're obviously have their hands all over this, even though we're doing the work. So, for, I don't know, 4 or 5 months now, I think since February, is, you know, I've been saying that it won't happen this summer, in that we hope to, you know, have the final design to the state of Vermont in the fall, and, you know, look at early winter as far as putting that out to bid. So, you know, Mary and I have talked a little bit about parts of this. You know, the utilities are just a bear. So they need to, you know, provide us the information and, you know, that we need to do the project. But, you know, and they don't charge us for that, but they have, you know, a lot of Heartlands, you know, that are doing things such as this, or have, you know, residents that also, you know, new housing that request undergrounding and et cetera. So, you know, I think the response to the Public Service Board is, you know, okay, you want us to do this, but if you want us to do it tomorrow, then, you know, we need to bring on X amount of people and it's gonna raise rates type thing. So there's a little bit of a balance. So, a lot at this point of, you know, what we're doing is kind of working with the utilities, because, you know, they give us the specs, they give us, you know, Green Mountain Power does the majority of the design, and then the other ones kind of follow. But we gotta make sure, you know, the Green Mountain Power, we have finalized the design with them more or less. But VTEL, Comcast, you know, the other 4 need to say, yeah, that works for us, or we need this, or we need that, or whatever. So that's kind of where we're at, and that's kind of where we've been for the past 6 months.
And does our engineering firm serve as an advocate for this, or is that really fall on you?
So, majority of the communication happens between VHB and the utilities, but when, you know, an email with bold black letters from, you know, the town that's trying to formulate this certainly can help push things along. So I'm, you know, you know, we have a project manager and engineer, and we'll have a project engineer on site to ensure that,
Right.
you know, the work is done, but it's not without, you know, time and energy to help push the project along.
Yeah, okay. And that's a state project, or the state requires the project engineer. Is it a state position, or is it actually just the engineering firm comes up with another audit?
So we had originally, and it was under budgeted, I think the expectation of what our project engineer would need to do was, you know, a low expectation. I think the state has said, you know, this is what we want for oversight. So much so that we want our own guy there. You know, you need to have your guy there. And by the way, you know, you gotta pay us 10, 15 grand to have our guy there. So just to ensure that, you know, it meets the standards of their road. You know, I do think that there was early on in this project, I think that's why the bike ped grant has helped this. But I think there was a fear on behalf of the state of Vermont that, you know, we were just gonna have a local guy with a, you know,
Sure.
an excavator come in and belt it out, and they were very fearful of what the end product was gonna be, because, you know, at the end of the day, it needs to meet their standards.
Yeah, okay.
And that's nothing against the local guys, it was just, you know,
Well,
they wanted us certainly, and the message has been loud and clear that, you know,
yeah, the spec calls for 3/4 inch stone, that we use 3/4 inch stone and not whatever is available that day. Okay.
So before we get to your notes,
yep,
are we done with the 3/4 intersection?
I think so.
Okay. Stacy, did you wanna, you're just listening? Okay. Anybody else before? No? Okay. No. So, Dave, your scintillating notes.
Keep you on the edge of your seat there. So Old Home Day, you know, I wrote this prior to Old Home Day. It has come and gone. I think we all felt as though it went very well. I'm amazed at how many people chuckle at the town manager out parking his, you know, out doing
You see
parking
how
for
enthusiastic he was? It was amazing.
He parked me?
cars.
I love it.
Oh, you were helping with the parking?
We needed help. We needed some personnel to do the parking, yes.
On the
I know before the
On the library field. It started early, and it just kept coming. But out, in and out, they were in early, and then people left, and then they were back. And between 10:15 and 11:10, you'd be amazed at how many people were trying to get into park for the parade.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Sure.
some people are, you know. So, anyway.
Dave did a great job. He was out here, but no safety vest.
No, I didn't have the safety vest, did I?
No,
I
you
did not.
not.
You were correct. So you're correct in pointing that out.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it went very well. We even got a sunset, I think, before you know, dusk actually hit. You know, the sun went down and kind of shined bright on the field. It was actually very, you know, it was actually very scenic.
Very spiritual.
It was kind of. And then they went, and it was a Hartland resident shooting the fireworks off. Was
Nicholas Cooper.
Nicholas Cooper.
Oh,
Was shooting them off. Yep. And by the way,
Single-handedly?
no, he had some assistance.
Is
Yeah.
he licensed or anything?
Yes,
Who did that?
I talked to him.
Nicholas Cooper.
Oh, my goodness. Huh.
He's always been interested in
He has-
fireworks.
He
Fireworks
has,
guy.
he has a New Hampshire license.
Oh,
Vermont does not require a license.
oh my gosh. Well, I noticed the first number of them were pretty low, and I was thinking, oh boy. Did you
So
notice that?
was watching from a distance, so I didn't.
I thought it
might have
was
missed some
staged that way,
moments.
so that they're.
Okay, well, I just remember one year being in the field and the embers pouring down on us. And I was wondering if that was happening this year.
He shot them, he kind of shot them a little bit more the other way.
Oh,
Rather
He
than-
explained-
so-
I talked to him,
Oh,
he explained how he tilts it
Oh,
back,
okay.
because he's pretty close.
Yeah.
I mean, very close to the people, so he tilts it back.
They were wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
And thank goodness we had rain a couple of days before.
Right,
so-
right, yeah, it really was great.
So I'll also add that Nick helped out with the parking as well. So I was like,
Awesome.
God, who is this, you know,
What's this dude?
Multi-talented.
fireworks guy? He's out, you know, he parked the van and he was over helping direct traffic. And it wasn't until afterwards he was like, yeah, I live in Hartland, or I'm from Hartland, and, you know, and on he went, and his mom and dad came down, and it was all good.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it was,
that's
was fun.
great, okay.
so yes, we pulled it off, and I thought everybody seemed very happy to have it and, you know, be a part of it, so. Highway Department, we have, we've put the advertisement out. We got, you know, a little less than a dozen responses. 2 were, you know, we felt as though were qualified. Those kind of didn't come through. So we will reassess this, but at the moment, we've kind of decided just to wait a few weeks before we pick this up again, just to see what kind of happens. Again, there's a lot, there's just no workers out there. If you look through the want ads, I spent some time going through VLCT today and some other places online, and there's a lot of towns out there looking for road crew folks. Again, we're not exactly sure what is the underlying problem. We do know that I think it's September that perhaps the unemployment benefits will go back to normal. If that has an effect, we'll see, but we'll wait about 4, maybe 5 weeks before we kind of pick that up and put that out again. Something that's not in your written one, if you recall, maybe several meetings back, the use of the town forest by the school. I did have an agreement written up. That'll probably come to you next select board meeting. I will send that over to Christine as well. It is primarily, you know, we agree, you know, allow you to use, you know, the paths and the lean-tos and such for outdoor education, but certainly they need to have X amount of insurance, which they do. They need to list us as an additional insured. The additional language in there is that they will indemnify us. You know, certainly, you know, when it comes to this, you know, there's always some gray, but we have had that written up, and you know, I'll share that with Christine, and it'll come to you folks probably next meeting. Finance, we're looking okay on delinquencies. The tax sale continues to move through the process. Right now, our total delinquencies are 141,000. The delinquencies just for the year are 106,000, so that's actually pretty good for us. There's like 2 or 3, if that came in, then we'd be looking better than normal. I almost dare say looking better than we have in recent history, but we'll see what happens, and certainly as we continue towards the tax sale, you know, I expect money to come in. You know, it usually dwindles down to 2 or 3 that actually go to sale, so hopefully that number does come down and we get to a good place. Listers finished up their grievances. They ended up having 14 grievances, so the BCA clock is starting to tick. So the BCA members be looking for a meeting at some point in the near future, certainly at some point in July. That will kick up. It was fairly, you know, quiet, nothing outrageous, but the grand list has been lodged, and you'll probably see a tax rate on the agenda for next meeting as well. Couple more things. So you have seen on the agenda as a future agenda item, the Lebanon landfill agreement. That is inching closer. Greater Upper Valley Solid Waste District is lending some assistance on this. Stearns, Nate Stearns has looked at it on behalf of the Greater Upper Valley Solid Waste District. They have kind of tweaked it over on the Lebanon side. A lot of towns that are involved in this, particularly over on the New Hampshire side. So ultimately, the important thing for us is when this comes to an agreement, you know, whether we are going to provide assistance to those that want to use the Lebanon landfill. There is a permit process to that. You can go through the permit process online. I understand that if you are savvy, you can do it pretty well. If you're not, or you don't have a computer, it's going to hinder your use of the Lebanon landfill. We can or we don't have to provide that assistance, but you know, we either need to agree or we don't agree to do that. Lastly, interesting night to kind of bring this back up, but I did put it back on my town manager update at the very bottom. So recently I have had kind of short to middle term goals and what I'm working on. I added long-term goals back to this. It's not a list that should look unfamiliar to you. It's a very familiar list. This is not on there for any other reason than some of this just, you know, came back to haunt me, and I decided it was time to bring this back to the select board level to kind of keep everybody clued into at least what I think the priorities should be, and I would urge you to keep them as priorities in your head. The rain that we received last Wednesday, we had about 4 inches. Could I have opened the door to the side here, we would probably have had a full room of water. It did come down, it puddled up about 4 or 5 inches above, you know, the glass. You know, so it didn't come underneath too bad. It did recede. It was quick enough that it receded before that, but obviously what came through that door also came through the wall to the lister's office. So we had quite a bit of water in the lister's office. It did recede in there, but you know, we did call ServPro today. I think that you know, if we don't address it, certainly we're looking at some mold or some other issues, but that's just a continuous problem for us. Comes through my wall as well. So what you see on this list, and I highlight really the first 5, the second 3 kind of roll with success of the first 5, but on that you see rec center drainage, Damon Hall drainage, both of which are a continuous problem for us to operate and for our employees. I've got the Jenny Road culvert that has washed out in 2017 and 2019 and has historically cost us a fair amount of money each time. Anyone who drives Queechee Road is an interesting drive. That's number 1 on the list. I also will just, we've talked about this recently, but you know, the rec center and the ADA access. And if anybody's going by the activity center, make sure you take a look at the roof because that's starting to blow off as well. So the rec center and the activity center, we do actively rent out. They are actively being used. They are actively community assets. Have been cryptic in the past, but I'll just come right out and say that we are not in compliance with either one of those buildings presently. And yet, you know, we do use them going forward. You know, it's fixable.
Not in compliance with what?
In what?
So the ADA access at the recreation center, particularly the cooperative nursery school, and is not just a personal preference, but it is a essentially a regulation of a daycare to make sure that you don't have exposed paint or bare floorings where you are. We have fixed the lead paint, but we still have the bare floor. And we have the roof, which obviously is an issue. So I know that we all want to look forward, and it's not too unlike our roads. I remember sitting here 3-4 years ago and getting hammered on basically every pothole that we had in town. And the answer is we can't do every pothole at the same time. It's a concerted effort. It takes, working in concerted places, and it's gonna take, work over time. Our buildings and other assets are the same thing. We're gonna get pulled in 18 different directions. There's a lot that people want us to do, but if we don't address the underlying issues, the foundation, then the rest is gonna crack. So I bring these back into the light, not because of anything else other than what we went through last week and the reminder of what we need to do, not just for our employees, but just for the basic use of buildings that we're already using. And two of the items, the first two on the list, are roads, which circles us back to 3 years ago. What was our number one problem was the roads. We're not there yet. We're still working on it. So I just put a reminder out there that one step in front of the other, and that there are some very important issues here for things that are in use and are important to us, yet need to be addressed.
Dave, which culvert on Jennyville Road are we talking about?
The one right by Paul's house.
It's just one
Yeah.
lane now, the one lane.
It's yeah, that completely washed out and we put in a temporary thing, isn't it?
I think that temporary thing goes back to Hiram's days.
No, it
There's
goes
there's
back-
cement,
no, it was Bob's,
it was at Bob's. There's
a long time ago though.
there's some cement blocks that have been, essentially makes up the box culvert.
Yeah.
But the problem is that the angle that culvert is in comparison to the brook, it jumps over every time and goes right down the road. And when we did the Mace Hill culvert, we did a hydrology study on this one, and the hydrology study was like, it needs to be like twice the size. So, it's an issue. I won't even get into the 2x4s that we're using for,
Guardrail.
the guardrails, that are kind of
Wheel guards.
going every which way. So I think that I'm just going to reiterate that we've got some really good things and we want to go in some really good directions. I'm just going to come back to, Phil, almost like the conversation on, the intersection. This stuff just takes time and focus. And, I think that we felt as though the intersection was going to be a 2 to 3 year project. And, here we are, literally, 7 years later, and that's the engineering, not the actual scoping and public participation, so.
Well, Dave, obviously, I understand the dilemma of only being able to do so many projects, both from a financial perspective, but also from a time perspective. But we are gonna talk about ARPA funding, and I just don't know how we're going to frame that conversation. The first two items here were roads, and it's my understanding is we can't use ARPA monies for the roads. So I have just I continue whenever I get something from Vermont League of Cities and Towns, I sort of look at it, or Two Rivers, and try to figure out how are we as a board going to approach, where can we use money to tackle some of these things that would shorten the list?
So I'll just answer that real quick. From my perspective, so, and again, we're waiting for July 16th, but I did go back through my notes with VLCT, and I think that the resilience pertains to stormwater runoff. I don't know how far beyond that it extends, which would make this Jennyville Road culvert
Possible.
could possibly be pulled into that.
Yeah.
You had to step out last meeting. I'm just going to mention this again. You know, depending on the amount of money that we get, you know, and the time and focus and the other things that we have to do, you know, what's not even on here is the 911 system that needs to be addressed. You know, and I'd have to put that right up there, you know, emergency response and residents, you know.
I did see a different system in Woodstock when I was on my bike. You know, they're actually, I don't want to get into that.
Yeah. So, you know, my advice to the board on the ARPA funds is, you know, we're gonna have to prioritize the projects, and we start with the priorities. And we may not make the entire list, let alone pass the first 2 or 3. And, you know, the Mace Hill Culvert project in and of itself, from design to, and that's a small culvert, was a 2-year project, you know, from beginning to end. You know, so I think that we need to keep in mind what the priorities are. And at the end of the day, if there's excess funds that need to go back, as long as we've kept focus and done what we needed to do, I think that there's, you know, complete honor in doing that and moving on. You know, it's completely possible. You know, what I hate to see us get tied up and running around, and then infrastructure money comes down and we can use that for Queechee Road. There's grant money available for ADA access at the rec center. It's not ARPA funds. You know, whether ARPA funds can be used for that or not, and the argument can be made is, you know, still up in the air. May not be completely in our favor, but, you know, that's a grant that would take a local match, but would solve our ADA issues. So, you know, I think that we need to balance and know that all our wishes and all the things that we want to accomplish and all the people asking for things to be done, you know, can't be done in a 5-year period.
Yeah, so I agree, and I just want to know, you know, are we going to just allocate a half hour at a meeting, or are we going to sort of, you know, just tackle it over a series? We have time. There's no immediate pressure to sort of say we have to do it in a month or 2. So. But it's a real, you know, there's going to be a lot of pressure on us if there's a lot of money coming in. You know, people are going to say, how come we're doing that? So we have to be very clear.
And Phil, I felt that pressure early, and it really bothered me. And I just came to the realization that, you know, we can only do so much. You know, you can give me 25 project managers, you know, we wouldn't even be able to keep track of what's going on. So, you know, at the end of the day, you know, I think what's important here is that, yes, we have pressure, and there's constituents of yours that are gonna say, you know, I want this or I want that. At some point, you need to understand as a board and individually that where we are in a town and how we're structured and what we can do, and not promise something to somebody, you know, yeah, I think that we can get that done. You know, if we have a list of 12 things, you know, depending on what the 12 are, you know, if it's, you know, bonuses for the staff because they're frontline workers, or, you know, a web page or something, you know, there's 3 that we can tick off the list. It's really of no time. But if you want to start ripping apart buildings and, you know, displacing libraries or recreation programs and schools that use those buildings, then, you know, we get bogged down in a hurry, and I think that people need to understand that, you know, just to, you know, put somebody in other buildings and reschedule programs and, you know, things like that is a real upheaval for us. And, you know, I think that, you know, at the end of the day, you know, we need to keep close what's, you know, going to get us the furthest down the road and, you know, kind of ride that,
Sure.
you know, to the end. And, you
we
know,
don't know how much money yet.
we don't even know how much money, whether it's gonna be 350,000 or $1 million. And, you know, I'll be honest with you, Phil, you know, I haven't really been this honest yet. If it's you know, if it's $1 million, you know, I hope that, you know, somewhere we've got some big projects to use $1 million, but if they're that big, you know, the timeline and
No, I-
the ability to do it is pretty
Yeah.
extensive.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I sat at the stop sign the other day and looking at or maybe when I came out of the library, looking at the houses for falling in and for sale. Could we ever use money and then down the line make that our office space? So, I mean, everywhere I look, I find projects, so don't get me wrong, you know, I just,
Well, that's, you know, that's part of the problem, but, you know, again, you know, the whole reason I brought this up is there's lots of projects, but
Yeah.
we've got things that are being used in an important manner now
Right.
that need to be addressed. So, you know, I question the wisdom of going off and doing, you know, 10 projects when, you know, our ability to do the projects that are necessary today for us to continue forward, even with those
well, and that's
programs.
what I tried to say to you, that
Yep.
there's a list here, you know, cross off the roads, because we know unless something radically changes, that's a separate pot of money that hopefully will come. And then what do we do that's on this list that can be feasible during the time frame and with,
And that's what we're kind of waiting on.
So maybe we could make this a regular agenda item and continue to talk about it.
I believe that's in your power, Madam Chairman.
Cookies always help the conversation too.
I would just throw out, and I thought there was a little bit of a consensus that we wait until we actually know what,
Oh, we have to.
Yeah,
what we're
yes,
talking
yes,
about.
Yes, right,
So-
but if there's some feeling that we wanna just, like, I think this is good to get this discussion on the table tonight, and we can just keep talking about it if we want. We can just have 10 minutes a meeting or whatever to address, well, okay, but just to address latest rumors or latest thoughts or questions.
Dave, what is
No,
the July
it's
16th?
ongoing. Yeah.
Is that the next date for?
That's when the public comment period ends, I believe.
Okay.
And then it may take them another month to write whatever it takes from the public comment period. I mean, they said that, you know, I forget when in May they were gonna have the original thing out, and that came like a month later than expected. And it was a public, it wasn't even a final, you know. I think we can use it as guidance, but it'll be interesting to see what details kind of change from that.
For what it's worth, I'm a big fan of putting an emphasis on reducing our legal liability as a town. So if there are things that we currently do that have legal liability associated with them, and we can invest some of this money to reduce that legal liability, then I feel like that's probably, all in all, the best way to look forward. Avoiding a real expensive lawsuit is the best way to set yourself up for future success.
No, yeah, I mean, yeah. There's no question about that.
Or, you know, to have a student, you know, arrive that needs handicapped access, and we need to put that in like, you know, a month. And that's just gonna be a miserable
Yeah,
experience, so.
it's thin ice, for sure.
Yeah. Anything else, Tim?
That's it, other than, that's all I got.
Well, congratulations on the Old Home Day. It was really.
It was great.
It
It
was
was
great.
really
Wow, it was,
Yeah,
I found it to be one of the best.
we were,
yeah, John Letter made a comment to me, early, late afternoon. He said he thought that there were more participants in the parade than he realized. And I think he was talking about fire trucks. But,
Yeah, I would like to see more floats, you know,
Floats and some animals.
animals,
One-
stilt walkers.
One animal,
horse.
right.
we didn't have the 4-H, did we? We usually had the 4-H folks. No cow.
Who was this Dan the Pirate Man?
Oh, you got
where'd he
$650.
It was on your, we paid him, yeah.
Yeah.
It was on-
But I mean,
Did the
He
man on,
added a lot.
the
He was
man on
great.
stilts, did he go with that?
he
I
did
didn't
it
put
in
in-
that afternoon. He did stilts.
Yeah,
It was the same guy.
Same
Yeah.
guy?
He was playing basketball in stilts.
yeah, he was doing his sword thing with the
Yeah.
kids.
With the
Yeah, that was pretty
bubbles.
cool.
I
That
thought
was
the
a good
bubbles
deal.
was great. I didn't
That's
know
worth
he
$650.
was around.
Yeah, good money well spent.
John
People
Leonard.
love those
Does
bubbles.
anyone
Yes.
see Jay? Or should I mail it? Sort of,
Do you have his address?
no, but I,
I don't think anybody's gonna see him for a while, because I think
Okay.
he's going out
I
there.
made an attempt, but he didn't even answer my phone message.
No,
I think you're gonna.
Oh, well,
yeah. To California,
oh, that's right.
yeah.
Truckee.
Do you know that they're gonna go? I mean, I heard the
You
rumor.
told me they
Yeah,
were.
I just heard the rumor, yeah.
Well, you didn't tell me it was a rumor. You
Well-
recited it as if it was a
We're,
fact, and now apparently I'm repeating rumors.
So now whoever is watching us
No, I think-
is also hearing that rumor. So if you wouldn't mind, I'll move to adjourn if that's
Okay.
allowed.
I'd like to say one more thing about
We got
the
a
Fourth.
couple
I just think the
items.
overall atmosphere, everybody was just so happy to be
Yeah,
back.
yeah, right,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Dave, I got a couple questions.
Oh, we're not.
In the no, not quite yet. The email showed the projected school tax rate that came.
I don't
Yeah.
think that was my email.
No, it wasn't you.
Yep.
No, it came from the state. And there is no increase. You know anything about this, Stacy?
They do. Very, very minimal increase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hundreds of pennies on a
One,
dollar.
well, either one of them went up just a tiny bit, either the residential or non-residential, and the other one went down
Yeah,
slightly.
Yeah, I have them, yeah, but they're basically flat.
So I'm surprised, and that's really good
I
news.
was too.
That's
So
shocking.
pleased.
Wonderful.
Okay. There are 2 dead limbs on that big old maple tree next to the rec center that really ought to be cut off. Some of the small parts fell off, and that's why I looked up to see where it came from.
The one on the, just inside the other guy's fence there.
Yeah, yeah. That's, this figure out how to be cut. And the only other thing I have, and this is something that's a long-term thing, I think. The noise from the tractor pull, is dangerous to people's ears, not up here, but I mean, if you're right there watching the thing.
Mm.
And I don't know if there's any, if we have any place to interfere, or whether we should encourage, or what we should do, but those guys that are doing it, they may have earplugs in, I can't tell you.
I doubt it.
I doubt it.
Those guys, man, they stand out there,
I-
Mr. French there, he's out there in 108 degrees with his
I'm gonna
boots
talk-
and
I'll
jeans.
talk to him, I'll talk to him. I don't get on a tractor without putting my
Yeah, same here.
ear protection on, and or a chainsaw or anything. And my tractor doesn't begin to make the noise that those tractors.
1944 John Deere makes.
Well, they've got
No,
some-
no, it's
some
the
of those have
Farmall
got,
that was loud. It wasn't the John Deere.
Big, industrial, diesel engines that don't really belong in the tractor. Some Cummins diesel or something. Anyways, and straight pipes, as far as I can tell, there's no mouth for it.
What we could, I'm not sure about the participants, but what John could probably request is that they've got a
Available.
little basket with them, you know, on the bleachers and at the food stand or something like that.
Yeah,
you know,
earplugs.
That's a great idea. That's a
'Cause,
great
um,
idea, Brittany.
Yeah, Nick, if you were down by Nick, he had a nifty little earplugs
Yeah.
that he gave out. It was kind of neat,
I didn't see any of you there at the tractor pull before the parade.
No, after,
Oh,
Gordon was there late in the afternoon.
because I was there before the parade.
yeah. No, I
It was
there-
like a,
I was there for quite a while.
yeah,
I just wanted to borrow the loader for a couple of days so I could do some.
I was impressed with the little,
Oh, man,
the
it's been.
little zero-turn mower with the
Thank you.
scraper blade
2 years
under it.
ago.
Maybe the town could use one of those.
those- you don't wanna give that to them, they'll be driving all around. You can use it on the walking path. That would help scrape it up.
Scrape it right off.
That would help scrape it up. Kinda nifty.
It's 7:30.
Please say
Am I right?
thank you to the crew for last Wednesday, Thursday cleanup.
Yeah,
That was big. And Friday night.
This is Noah.
I say thank you for the powers above, we didn't even get any wind.
Gordon, my son took a video and I have limbs that came down this way and fell, and limbs that came down that way and fell. It was going, the rain was going sideways, and totally wind, and then like 2 minutes later, it's going back this way. It
Yeah.
was phenomenal, and I don't know how much, I don't have a rain gauge to know how much water came down, but that wind was, the only thing I was happy about is that we were in a bit of a drought leading up to it. If we had all that rain and then had that kind of wind, trees would have been down a lot more. But, yeah, we did a little pruning along the roads, for sure.
Well, my rain gauge said .85,
Well,
about 20 minutes.
Mine was 3/4 of an inch
Yeah.
in 20
yeah,
minutes.
Yeah, and,
you should have seen the Quechee Road up by, across from the solar field there in Hartford.
yeah,
Oh, what,
yeah,
what,
trees and
trees and wires.
some big
and-
big pine trees up that way,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, what a mess. What a
Wow.
mess. Okay.
I will move that we adjourn.
Thank you.
I will second and third.
I don't know, I'm gonna vote against.
Oh, bummer. We can overrule it.
There's enough of us here going home.
Okay, amen, thank you very much,
All right,
Dave.
thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
So one of the
Oh, yes,
reasons these
yes.
seed pods aren't available commercially is they don't hold up super well, so they get a little limp. They're a little limp.
Okay, so
When
I'm
I
gonna,
first brought them, they were crisp.
It's still crispy,
I'm not a
tastes
radish
very
guy,
good.
but I'll take some to each
They're
night.
they're more mild than your
Okay.
average. Well, not your average water